Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET Now. You're going to be soon completing a year of your deputation here in India. This is your second stint. Tell us, how has the momentum in these past couple of months sort of picked up, and especially after Prime Minister Mark Carney came to become the PM?
Well, there's never been a better period, I think, between India and Canada. In 80 years of diplomatic relations, we have a huge momentum, starting at the top between the two prime ministers. They've met 4 times in a year. We have a range of dialogues between different ministries and ministers. We're starting to see big contracts like the Cameco uranium deal take place, and much, much more to come. We have an ambitious schedule for the next few months. We're hoping to complete a free trade agreement, a CEPA, a comprehensive economic partnership agreement this year. We're looking at a security of information agreement so that our defense industries can work together. We have a large trade delegation coming in October. It will be the counterpart to Minister Goyal's trip to Canada a few weeks ago, and many, many other things. So even over the next 4 or 5 months, we expect to see a continuing hockey stick, as we would say in Canada, a hockey stick pattern of engagement. Not your hockey stick, but Canada's hockey stick that looks like that.
Okay. So, of course, there's going to be a spurt as far as activity and momentum between ties between both the countries is concerned. High Commissioner, you've spoken about very many aspects of the relationship. Education is something that we were talking about. The trade deal is something that Canada and India are looking at with a lot of anticipation as well. There is a lot of excitement on both the sides. And, of course, the nuclear deal. I'm going to touch upon each of these aspects over the next couple of minutes. But first, let's talk about the CEPA agreement that both the sides are looking at negotiating or completing the negotiations. In your opinion, and from your point of view, what is it that Canada is looking at with respect to that trade agreement, and by when do you anticipate these negotiations to get completed?
So like India, we're actually engaged in a broad range of free trade agreements. We have one that we're talking about with ASEAN, for example. Our foreign minister was in Manila yesterday discussing that. We hope to finish that by the end of the year. There are many others that we're active on, but India is different. India is different because of the scale, because of the size of the market and the opportunities for Canadian business, and because of the sectors. You have such a wide range of sectors. Many of these, defense, aerospace, agriculture, we have a presence, a foothold, let's say, but the scope to grow is enormous, and no other country offers that right now. To Canada. So those are things. On the Indian side, what we're offering to India is, yes, our population is a lot smaller than yours, but we're still the 9th biggest economy in the world. We are the 2nd largest landmass in the world, and we have enormous amounts of commodities. We're number 4 in oil, for example, number 5 in LNG, number 1 in potash, and on the list goes on in critical minerals. We have the highest post-secondary education level in the world. We're number 3 in AI research. We're the only country, I believe, that can build from scratch every element of a jet aircraft because we have the minerals, we have the technology. So we offer a package that's fairly unique, maybe completely unique, and so a kind of scale on our own side that matches the growing demand of India. Whether it's for the green transition, whether it's for infrastructure, we can offer a great deal because our economy is also quite diverse. So it matches very nicely with what's going on as you build towards Viksit Bharat. And on that connection, I would say that our country is going from a north-south orientation with the US to a diversification that's going to be east-west. And so we're building a lot of infrastructure, especially on the West Coast. We've announced a brand new oil pipeline. That will give us the capacity to deliver about 2 million barrels a day, about 1/3 of your demand.
Absolutely, and energy is one critical aspect of the ties. But coming back to the trade aspect of ties, High Commissioner Guter, you say that the next round is slated to happen in October, but by when do you expect these negotiations to get completed? And is there a word that's been exchanged with the Indian government as far as the implementation of the pact is concerned?
So there's ongoing discussions between our negotiators. The next round will actually be in September. The prime ministers have said they want it by the end of the year, and what prime ministers want, they tend to get. I'm not privy to all the fine details of the negotiations, of course, but I think we'll get there. I think the will is there, the demand is there. We've done this before. You've done it with a number of other countries. There's really nothing that stands in the way of our doing it. And I would say that even before we finalize all the ratification process and so on, we have to go through a few steps at home. I believe that business will take the signal, because the trade agreement is important in and of itself on tariffs and that kind of thing, but it's even more important potentially to signal that we're both open for business. And even before we conclude the agreement, businesses will see, hey, they're heading for this. Let's look at business in Canada, or let's look at business in India. And so I think that's already happening. So it's a step, it's important, but it's not the whole picture. And I think it's going to propel forward the economic relationship much, much faster.
Absolutely. And High Commissioner, you were talking about the fact that there is a lot of complementarity in both the economies in terms of, what India exports to Canada and what Canada exports to India, and the potential thereof in trade. But when we talk about the energy aspect of the trade, it becomes all the more important because of the kind of disruptions that we've seen in West Asia when the Prime Minister, he came here in India earlier this year. There was a very, very consequential agreement, a very important agreement as far as nuclear energy collaboration is concerned. Where do things stand on that front? When is it likely to get sort of operationalized?
So we're kind of an energy superpower, actually.
Yes.
We have oil and gas, we have carbon capture, we have everything. But on nuclear, that stands out because for 6 decades, we've had cooperation, one form or another, with India. CANDU reactors, the Canadian design, is what powers 18 of your 24 reactors. 2 weeks ago, we launched a brand new nuclear policy in Canada. It's very ambitious. We're aiming to build up to 10 reactors in Canada. We've got small modular reactors underway. We have micro reactors being developed. And so we're looking to see how we can work on this with you to advance your goal of 100 gigawatts from 8 gigawatts of nuclear power. We have 350 companies working in the nuclear energy sphere. We're also able to provide training, because I read in at least one article, you'll need between 3 and 5 lakh skilled professionals to achieve that goal of 100 gigawatts. We can do that with you as well, because, again, most of that base of technology is CANDU. So we've got a lot of scope to work together. We're actively discussing that with Ottawa and the mission here, and we hope to see a lot of progress in that one in the near future.
And businesses have started talking with the Canadian government, given the fact that the Shanti Bill has also been passed.
And we've certainly noticed the Shanti Bill, and we hear a lot of interest from companies on both sides in getting together. And it's a very technical area. Of course, we have to be extremely precise in what we do. There have to be safeguards. But within that, I think there's a large scope and a great deal of interest on both sides.
Okay. Now, High Commissioner, you've also been sort of, touring multiple states in India. You've been meeting chief ministers of multiple states. You've met very recently the Telangana chief minister. Give us the kind of conversations that you're having with state leaders, and, which segments are of interest to you. You were also talking about the fact that Canada would potentially look at investing in startups, in Indian startups as well, that are in the space of defense, for instance.
Yes. So, again, there's so many sectors for us to cover, it's hard to keep up. But with chief ministers, I would say their primary interest is in Canadian investment in those states. And I've been visiting as many states as I can to get the picture back in Canada of India rising. It's not confined to 1 or 2 places. It's happening across the country, including in states like UP, where I've been, West Bengal, of course, Karnataka, and so forth. We have about $110 billion of investment in India right now. I think that makes us number 1 or 2 in terms of countries investing in your country, and it's not in paper. It's not in stocks and bonds. To a large degree, it's in physical things like infrastructure. So that's probably the biggest ask from the chief ministers, and we are prepared to look at that very carefully. Our pension funds, our institutional investors see the future in India. They're willing to bet on India, and it's with my pensions. I hope they're right. I'm sure they are. So they're coming in a big way, and I see only really positive prospects for that. In terms of startups, so we have startup economies in AI, in space, as you do, and of course, you've got all kinds of incubators and accelerators. What young people, and we have 400,000 of them in Canada, for example, what young people need is access to capital, mentoring, technology, and so on. They're great ideas, but taking a great idea and making a really successful business is something that we want to look at. We've just been bouncing around some ideas lately about how we could take that great big group of people who've been to Canada, made some connections in Canada, probably coming back to the private sector in India. How can we realize business potential from that? Can we support them financially somehow? We're just at the early stages of looking at that, but everybody I talk to says, yeah, that's interesting, let's try that, because it would be a way of building trade between the 2 countries, building on the networks that are growing between the 2 countries, but also advancing the prospects for young people. And that's really what we want to look at when we talk about startups.
Right, so perhaps it could be a potential corridor, especially as far as startup cooperation is concerned, and we'll be watching out for those investments here in India, High Commissioner. But defense, of course, is an important aspect as well of ties, and you did mention about it. Where are things on that front, given the fact that this was a very prominent aspect when the two leaders met earlier this year?
Well, when Prime Minister Carney came, he also came with our Defence Minister, Minister McGinty. He was extremely impressed by the companies that he met. Now, as with many other sectors, we have a toehold, but that's about it. We have a couple of companies. We just cut the ribbon on one that opened in Hyderabad 2 weeks ago. But in the defense sector, we're going to spend $500 billion more between now and 2035. We're going to 5% of our GDP. We are the 9th biggest economy, and it's an over $2.2 trillion economy. So that's a great deal of spending. We're going to be looking at air, sea, land, space, cyber, all things that you're looking at as well as your defense sector expands. So a lot of excitement by businesses on both sides. We're supposed to launch a dialogue on defense, which we haven't got the date for yet, but that was announced by the Prime Ministers. As I mentioned, we'll be working on a General Security of Information Agreement, which would be a framework so our companies can work together. We've now got our defense attaché in place here and are scaling up. Huge opportunity in this field. We're an advanced leader in, let's say, drone technology, maritime. All of these things sync up very well with what you're looking for. So a great deal of scope there.
Right. So, High Commissioner, when you mentioned about security, well, there have been skirmishes between the two sides on that front. And of course, those largely, at least what it seems, have been ironed out. How are you working on that front to sort of make sure that the reset in ties that we've seen, it sort of continues to build on what's already been
It's a very important question because obviously our relationship just over a year ago was really in tatters, and it's come around enormously. But that's because of the investment of people in rebuilding the trust. We've had a number of meetings between our security officials at the highest levels. Those continue. And it's not just about looking at issues of the past. It's actually looking at issues of the present and the future. We had Operation Hardball a couple of weeks ago. That was an example of cooperation, including with our American friends, to deal with security issues, criminality, transnational crime, to make all of our citizens safer and more secure. So on this area, I think we are going to see a continuing momentum, as with others, as we get to know each other better. And some of this is simply procedural. There are different procedures that we have. Of course, the courts are involved, evidence and so on has to be precise. These are the kind of things that are being worked on right now. The last thing I would say about that is, as with all relationships, you don't want to take them for granted. And so it's continual investment, it's continual relationship building, networking for the people that have to follow these issues. But a lot has happened in the last year, and literally in the first week that I arrived, we had a very senior level meeting, and we've just gone from there. So I'm optimistic, but again, we don't take it for granted. We're working very hard to make sure this momentum is maintained.
You know, that's an important point that you made, that there's going to be continuous work being put in as far as this security aspect of ties is concerned. But just a final few questions, High Commissioner. Just want to also get in your thoughts on the recent announcement by the United States to put 50% tariffs on Canada. We've seen commentary that's also coming in from the United States. How's Canada looking at that? Is there room for any negotiations with the United States? Where do things go on from here?
Well, there is active negotiation around, the trade agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. That's underway. And, some of this is bargaining, let's say.
Okay.
We don't feel it's a fair approach in some areas. But, we have our own bargaining strategies. Canada's a very important partner for the U.S. There's no question about that. And that's why you hear Republicans talking about how important it is, as well as Democrats. So we'll continue with that, recognizing that the U.S. will be our biggest trading partner probably forever, because they are next door. It is a gigantic economy. And we'll get through this because it's in both countries' interest to do this. So we'll manage it. And tariffs come and go. But on the larger question of how that affects our perspective on the world, the global trading system, again, with India, we hope to have a stable relationship. We want to offer you an option that now you haven't had the opportunity of taking, because we have been very focused on the North American market. We still want, of course, to have a relationship with the U.S. and with Mexico, but we do want to seriously diversify. And really to do that, what we want is mutual investment in each other's supply chains. We're not looking at one-offs so much, which are important, but really a long-term relationship that's built on that kind of mutual recognition of what each side offers. You've got Viksit Bharat. In a way, we're going through the recreation of Canada, and this will take us a number of years as well. So we're on a pathway that is in a way parallel, and we need to join that up in economic terms.
Absolutely, High Commissioner. And, building trust is something that both Minister Piyush Goyal, when he was in Canada about a month back, he spoke about as well, along with Canadian leaders like Maninder Singh Sidhu and several others, Anita Anand as well, along with both the Prime Ministers earlier this year. Just one final question. Tomorrow is when, the 10% tariffs that the United States imposed under Section 122, they sort of expire. What is the trade architecture that you're looking at, especially when it comes to what the U.S. is now planning, because you do have Section 301 investigations also that have been put by the United States and several countries, and that includes, India as well.
Yeah, I think we have to take a comprehensive look at all elements of that and on the relationship with the U.S. It's very complex. Our trade agreement is very important, but there's much beyond that. So we look at the whole picture, and I think we'll get through this. Both sides are negotiating. I think that's the attitude coming out of the meeting that was just held yesterday between the Prime Minister and the provincial premiers. We're standing together, it's whole of Canada, and we'll take an approach to this negotiation that makes sense for us. We're doing things internally to strengthen our own capacity, yes, our own sovereignty, but also actually it makes us a better partner for other countries too. I mean, for example, investing in defense probably makes us a stronger partner for the United States than in the past. But insofar as it affects the relationship with India, I think, again, we have more to offer by being obliged to do more on our own side. And so I think we'll come out stronger. As the Prime Minister on our side says, every day Canada's a stronger and stronger country, and that's true. Canadians are really standing up. We're investing more in our own sectors. And Canadian business is very much looking to alternatives to overdependence on one country or another. This is very much a trend, and it's definitely not a blip. It's happening on a consistent basis. So I think all of that augurs very well for our trade and our relationship, as well as how we approach the larger global trading relationship. We want to be a stable partner, reliable. We respect deals when they're done. And we think there's a great deal of partnership that we've only begun to explore with you. So lots that's going ahead.
Absolutely. And that's really what forms the base of a good relationship. Trust is a key ingredient. And, trust is something that India and, of course, Canada have spoken about over and over again. And we do hope that the trade deal concludes soon and the benefits, sort of are reaped by businesses on both the sides and economies on both the sides, given that there is a complementarity, that there's a lot of scope for trade and other sectors to expand. On that note, High Commissioner, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks very much.